Today's video may contain subject matter that some viewers may find disturbing, and as such, viewer discretion is advised. And if you have a story you would like to send my way, go to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so. And of course, thank you. A few years ago, I was living with my friend in a sort of crummy apartment building in a not-so-great town. We're both female and we're used to getting catcalled and harassed, so we knew how to handle ourselves and be aware of our surroundings. I'm a pretty approachable and friendly person and can hold a conversation with just about anyone. I've shared cigarettes with the homeless former meth addict and listened intently while he shared his entire backstory with me. I've been approached by drunk women on countless occasions who just want to talk to me about our compatible astrological signs or vent about men. My philosophy in life has always been that everyone has their own journey they're on, and that we're all humans, so why not be nice to one another? I've been called naive because of this mindset in the past, but I know that I can stand up for myself if I need to. Still, hindsight is 20/20, and I wish I could have seen how naive I was when I invited the chicken guy to my stoop. My friend and I had a small concrete stoop outside of our apartment, which was our safe haven away from our other abusive roommate. Just to put some distance between him and us, we would take to the stoop and light up a cigarette, if only to forget our situation for a while. On one of these outings, which were becoming more and more frequent at that point, a car yielded in front of us. The stoop faced the back parking lot of the building, and people sometimes stopped their cars like this to run into their nearby unit, so we didn't really pay too much attention to it. That was until he called over to us, asking to bum a cigarette. It wasn't uncommon for people to ask to bum from us when they saw us sitting outside, so there weren't really any initial red flags. The man bounced out from his SUV when we said sure, and my friend lent him a lighter as he took one of my marble golds. He thanked us profusely, took a couple of drags, and told us that he had just come from a barbecue with some family before lighting up and saying, "Oh, wait right there." We did as he said. A little unnerved at this point, I expected him to come back with pot or something to return the favor, but instead, he bounced back to us carrying a paper plate covered in tinfoil. He dropped the plate at our feet, and after a pause, my friend asked, "What is it?" "Open it," the man replied, gesturing. My friend looked from the plate to me and kind of chuckled. The man was eagerly looking down at us, so I made the first move and peeled back the tinfoil. I was nervous until a waft of something familiar hit my nose. It was chicken. Grilled and seasoned chicken wings and a couple of ribs. My friend and I both looked at one another. She seemed to be as relieved as I was. "Go on, eat," the man encouraged, dropping down to sit cross-legged in front of us. Tentatively, my friend took a chicken wing in her hand and I took a rib. The meat was actually really good, and we thanked him. Without knowing it, we had just invited a conversation, and a long one at that. We were outside with the man for hours talking, or rather letting him talk, eating and smoking. Eventually we told him that we definitely had to go in, and he took off in his SUV. Later we joked about it, naming him the chicken guy, and I chalked it up as a weird interaction with good intentions behind it. The next time that we saw the chicken guy was when we were once again out on the stoop. This time, my friend had one of her friends over. This friend, now ex-friend, had a lot of problems, and we were in the process of trying to keep him from leaving the apartment with a bottle of liquor. As if by magic, chicken guy appeared and greeted us before sitting cross-legged on the concrete slab. He soon figured out that something was going on when he saw the bottle, and offered that maybe we could share the liquor there. I realized that he was trying, in his own way, to keep the friend from straying. However, his attempts to ground the friend were ineffective. Eventually, the situation was sorted out by my friend, who left me outside with the chicken guy in order to take care of her friend. I wasn't uneasy being alone with this guy. After all, I was right outside of my unit with the range of 3 other people who could back me up if anything happened. I wasn't uneasy until the guy asked me for my number. Before I could finish saying that I wasn't interested, he interjected. "It's not like that," the guy said. "I just want to hang out with you guys sometimes, as friends." As nice as this guy seemed, there was no way we were all going to become friends. Throughout both encounters we'd had with him, we could tell that he was high on something other than weed, and we'd only talked to him once before. I kindly rejected his request, and though he looked a little upset, he wished us well and took off. I wish that was the last encounter we had with Chicken Guy. If it had been, I could at least write the 2 meetings off as funny, weird stories. But we had one last meeting with him. A very creepy end to the story of Chicken Guy. It was already 1:30 in the morning. My friend and I had been binge-watching something on Netflix and lost track of the time. We were just about to start up the next episode when we saw a shadow at the back door. Because all of our lights were on, you could just barely make out a human shape on the other side of our sliding glass door. We weren't sure who it was until we heard a now familiar voice call to us. It was Chicken Guy. I almost instinctively went to answer the door before my friend gestured for me not to. So, we sat and waited for him to go away. Surely he would leave once he realized we were clearly ignoring him, right? No. This guy starts knocking and then banging on our door, calling out to us occasionally. I couldn't even say anything, and I think my friend was just as nervous as I was. We had literally only talked to this guy twice before, and now he was banging on our door when most people were already asleep. Eventually, I got up all my courage and slid the door open a crack. He started asking if we had a cigarette that he could bum, but I stopped him and told him that we didn't smoke anymore, which was true. His face fell, and then I said that we were going to bed soon and pushed for him to leave. Still seeming upset, he walked away while giving a half-hearted thanks, and I quickly closed and locked the door behind me. I know that nothing violent happened in this story. No one was hurt, robbed, or cussed out, but you never know what people are capable of. And this story could have ended much worse. Our other roommate chewed us out for letting some random person chill outside of our unit, and told us how stupid we were. For a while afterward, we each made sure not to walk through the lot alone at night. For weeks we waited for him to pop up again, but luckily he never did. I don't think I can ever stop seeing the good in people. I may seem naive, but I've been raised to trust others and not judge a book by its cover. Still, since this situation, I've become much more cautious in my interactions with others. My advice now to others, and 22-year-old me, would be don't put yourself in jeopardy just because you don't want to come across as rude. The temporary backlash you might get for being rude to someone is much better than getting yourself into a bad situation with the wrong person. Be safe out there. So, I, 16 female, found out recently that my grandmom was in the graduating class at Riiiziii High School of 1978. At that time, she was 18. The story came out because she said something when I told her about the new series on Netflix. You guys should know who I'm talking about. I told her about it and she goes, "Oh, I remember him." And I obviously told her that a lot of people know him because, you know, what he's done. And she stops me and goes, No, I graduated with him." I stood there completely frozen. Now, she showed me the yearbook picture, but I don't think I'm comfortable sharing that on the internet because I don't want people to find out information about my family. But I can't lie about this. Especially this. So I'll tell you some things that she told me. This was about 2 weeks ago, so I'll try and remember what she said word for word. Now, I did go to the high school with him, but there were so many kids in that school, I barely even talked to him. Everything you hear about him from high school is basically 100% truth. He was the definition of weird. He would actually come to school drunk on some days. The only reason some people started to notice who he was because he would freak out as some sort of joke, and he would act like a kid with special needs. I don't remember if I had any memorable conversations with him, but I do remember one specific time I saw him in the hallway. I had only heard about what he had been doing, but I didn't know if it was actually true, so I asked him, "Aren't you the boy who puts on those acts in the hallways?" "Yes, I am. Why, do you find me funny?" She responds, "Well, sure, everyone does. I've never really seen you. I've only heard the stories that people tell, and I just wanted to know if it was you." "Well, you're right, it is me. Glad you find my jokes enjoyable." And he smiled at me. Not a toothy smile, but a grin, I guess. I don't remember talking to him again after that, as that was towards the end of the school year. Then, the school year ended to my luck, and he appeared in my college. He got kicked out shortly after for, I think, a drinking problem. I never knew of his family life, frankly. I didn't want to know, but I could tell it wasn't good. I never saw him again after that. Well, I did, but on TV, when I found out what he did. I can't even begin to describe how I felt about it being the fact that I kind of sort of knew him and went to school with him. I'm not saying he was normal. With anybody that turns out like this, people normally say, "Oh, I could never see them doing it." It disgusted me in ways that I can't describe. The first thing the news said was that they caught somebody who they described as a murderer later on. Then they let out the details of what he actually did, and that's what shook people. Seeing the new series really helps people understand how disgusting that man is. Well, it shows you what he went through. It doesn't make you feel bad for him, which nobody should. I'm glad he went out the way he did. Maybe if I didn't ask him that question that day, I wouldn't feel so uneasy. So, yeah, that's basically in a nutshell the story that she told me. I could tell my mother feels uneasy when she talks about it, but I'm guessing my grandmother has told her already. This happened a few years ago. I was 16, am female, and was going to German classes at a language school. They ended at 8:30 p.m. and the bus came at 9. I usually would wait until there were 5 minutes left to go out, as it was dark, and wait at the bus stop a street away. This time I decided to go earlier to see if the shops were open to buy something to eat. I arrived at the bus stop, and there was a couple waiting. Past a gas station, a sports club. It was full of screens to watch football and such. A few shops, a bakery, and finally the supermarket. Both the bakery and the supermarket were closed, so I went back and decided to buy something at the gas station. I bought snacks and went outside to the bus stop. There was someone else this time besides the couple. A guy. Mid-30s, maybe 40s. I was minding my business, waiting, eating my snack. There were still like 25 minutes left. The guy approached me and asked in German if I had a lighter. I told him that I didn't, and he backed down to where he was. He came back about a minute later and asked something. I don't remember what, but I didn't want to talk to strangers, so I said in English that I didn't speak German, which was kind of true. Unfortunately, he replied in English and told me that he also spoke English. He asked where I was from, and I said Spain. Not true. He then asked me what my name was, and I answered quickly with a fake name. He then told me that I was very pretty and that he saw me pass by the sports club he was in, and I started to get very uncomfortable with this situation. He asked me what my age was, and I said 17, again, not wanting to reveal anything true. He said that I looked older. He then said that he actually came here to find someone he could marry, and that I was so pretty. Keep in mind, this dude was way older than me, and very obviously so. I was even more uncomfortable and told him that I had a boyfriend back in Spain, which was also a lie. He said it was sad and such a pity, and then asked me for my number. I told him I didn't have a phone number because I was not from here. He got sad and asked me for my Facebook. I told him again I didn't have one, and he got kind of pushy, almost angry, and then asked me, "But don't you want to be friends? Don't you want to be my friend?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, I just don't have anything." And he kind of gave up at that point. He then left. He turned around and went back to the sports club, which means that when he saw me by the window, he decided to follow me half a block and wait at the bus stop for me, which is one of the creepiest parts of this. So yeah, to that guy, let's not meet again. So, this story takes place back in the late summer of 2007. I was 18 years old, had graduated high school, and was looking forward to starting college in just a couple of weeks. I'm a tall guy, a bit over 6 foot, and was lanky in build back then. My dad and I had a yearly tradition of going on a trip to Reading, where we would stay at a hotel for the weekend and go to the water slides, see a movie, grab dinner from a fancy restaurant or two, and just generally have a good time away from home. It was Saturday, and we had gone to the water slides all day. Once the sun was setting, we decided to go to In-N-Out for dinner, and then had plans to go to the movies later in the evening. We were going to go see Rush Hour 3, but on this particular occasion, my dad had gotten pretty wiped out and decided he would just relax at the hotel. I still wanted to go to the movies, and said that that was okay. He dropped me off at the movie theater, which was only a couple of miles from the hotel we were staying at, and I told him that he didn't have to wait up for me. I would just walk back after the movie. While I was waiting in line, I noted that there was a surprising amount of people around my age, all going to see a movie called Superbad. It was starting 10 minutes later than Rush Hour 3, and so I was curious to see what it was about. And then I changed to that movie. It was a great time. The movie let out close to midnight, and I was full of energy. The moon was full and it was warm at night in Reading, low 70s, so I was in good spirits as I started a leisurely walk back to the hotel. On my way back, I noticed a silver car pulling out from a nearby street. It was late and on a quieter part of the city, so there wasn't a whole lot of traffic at that time. So it was notable. It slow rolled up to me and the passenger window rolled down. Inside was a guy who might have been in his late 20s, early 30s. He was clean-shaven with dark hair and decently dressed. He asked me if I needed a ride. I thought it was a little odd, but he was smiling and seemed friendly enough. I'd had such a good day and was still full of energy, though, so I said no thanks, and I told him I was just going to walk back to my hotel. His smile faltered for a moment, and he asked if I was sure. I nodded, assuring him that I would be all right. He shrugged his shoulder and asked one last time if I was certain. I said yeah and then began to walk. He drove off, and I thought that was the end of it. But it wasn't. About 2 minutes later, I was still walking along the street, and I saw a car coming from the opposite side of the road. There was a cement divider on the center of the road, and it only had a couple of areas where cars could turn around. I had been distracted with my own thoughts and wasn't looking for it, but I thought that it might have been the same car. I glanced back and could just barely see where the road curved, and the car turned around at the same intersection. It turned around and came driving back my way, and now I knew that it was the same car with the guy that I talked to earlier. I saw him look at me as he passed by me again. Chills went down my spine. I began to walk faster, but not too much, as I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he had forgotten something, but then realized that he hadn't. Either way, I was paying attention now. Sure enough, as I walked forward, I saw him drive by on the opposite side of the road again. Any doubts that I had disappeared, and now I was on edge, ready to bolt if I saw his car slow down next to me. I saw him drive by again, but also some other truck drove by on the opposite side of the street and his car passed by me. At this point, I couldn't see where he could turn around, but I knew the streetlights he could use weren't too far ahead either. I looked around, and across the street from me were some businesses, and they had bushes in front of them. I waited until I couldn't see the silver car anymore, and I ran across the street, and I hid behind the bushes, using them for cover. I watched, and I waited. I tied my shoes tight as my heart was pounding, hoping that he would not come by again. But he did. I saw his silver car drive by my hiding spot, and I let out a sigh of relief when he didn't suddenly decide to drive into the parking lot where I was. But I didn't move either. I knew that he could turn around again, so I kept waiting. He drove by again on the opposite side of the street. I then started counting for 10 minutes. 600 seconds. I decided that if I saw his car drive by, I would start again and I would still be ready to run just in case. The 10 minutes went by and I didn't see his car again. I got up and I shakily made my way back to the hotel, keeping an eye out for any new cars coming my way. None did. My dad woke up when I got back to our hotel room and I told him what happened. He got up and took a look around the hotel parking lot before saying that we should lock the door, draw the curtains, and try to get some sleep. We left early the next day. I'm really glad that I didn't get into that guy's car that night, because I just recently heard that there had been a number of kidnappings in that area around that time, with people getting taken after getting into seemingly friendly strangers' cars at night. It happened last night around 7:30 p.m., so it was already dark outside. My friend and I, both 22 and female, were about 2/3 of the way through our 16-hour drive back home from Salem, Massachusetts. I really needed to pee, so we stopped at a rest area in eastern Pennsylvania. I usually avoid rest areas, but it looked nice enough, and I didn't have any bad feelings about it. We walked in, and the only other person inside was an older man, probably mid to late 60s, standing by the vending machine talking on his phone. We went past him across the room and into the bathroom, and we were in there for a good 10 to 15 minutes because she wanted to pop a couple of pimples. When we were finished, we walked back out laughing at something one of us had said. The man was still standing there, but he wasn't on the phone anymore. He stared and smiled at us, in what we both thought was a creepy way. He did this the entire time it took us to get to the door to exit the rest area. We started running back to my car, which was about 6 parking spaces from the door, still laughing, but also a little freaked out. We were about to get in the car when I remembered my boyfriend wanted us to check my oil on the way home, since it was such a long drive and my car had been having some slight issues. I considered waiting until the next time we needed to stop for gas, but decided to just get it over with. As I was checking the oil, the man from before, along with another slightly younger man that we hadn't seen, left the rest area. They both started walking towards us, with the younger one coming head-on on the sidewalk and the older one kind of going diagonally toward the driver's side of the car. This was odd, because there were no other cars past mine. The only cars that I could see were on the other side of the lot, closer to the building. My friend and I looked at each other and bolted for the car doors, but then I realized I was still holding the dipstick, so I cursed, and we had to run back over and lift the hood back up. Then We hurried into the car and locked the doors just as they were approaching. We watched as the younger man slowly walked past the car, staring in at us with a blank face. He continued walking down the sidewalk for a while before pausing for a second and then turning around to come back towards us. The older man, still just smiling, got within a few feet of the driver's side door and then turned and walked past us to the other side of the parking lot. I backed out, and once I straightened the car and started pulling forward to leave the rest area, we saw that he had moved to the middle of the road and was standing there with that same unnerving smile. But now, he was motioning for us to stop. I drove past him because, no way. We watched in the mirrors as both men got into cars on the other side of the parking lot closer to the building. We spent the next couple of hours shaken up and blabbing about what could have happened. I'm not sure what their intentions were, but there can't be any good reason to approach two women like that at a rest area. I tried telling myself maybe they were gonna ask if I needed help with car troubles, but I was very clearly just checking the oil. And it doesn't make sense why the younger man would walk the complete opposite direction from his car and go so far down the sidewalk. So, I'm not really sure. When I was around 24, I moved out to an apartment near my college since the dorms were unavailable or just not spacious. However, I quickly realized that renting would be very expensive, especially for a college student. Thankfully, I was able to meet up with another student who wanted a buddy, and lucky me, he is a chef in the works, and would love to cook every other night without having to pay him. I would basically be his tester and rate his cooking. Our first month together was the best. He made such exotic meals that could only be found at high-end restaurants. Almost every cook night would be something that I would look forward to. However, one Saturday morning, I woke up to some tummy ache. I had to rush to the bathroom and puked. I was actually surprised by this and went to my roommate who was making breakfast. He was surprised to hear this too and checked yesterday's leftovers and didn't see anything bad. I figured it could have been that I simply ate too much since prior to dinner last night, I hit the gym and lifted heavier than usual. Every other night, in no particular pattern, I would experience more belly pain, kind of like both in and on my stomach. I assumed my habits of working out hard had to be the reason, and eating a lot afterwards. But I also noticed that after eating, I would get so tired and usually go to bed right after, which never happened before moving in with my roommate. I also noticed that he always plated my food for me, and if I tried to help out, or pour it myself, he would tell me that I would ruin his masterpiece. I could understand what he meant, but it still made me a little suspicious. I finally had the idea to open up about this and talk to a close friend about it. She told me she would stay with me for the night because I was suspicious that he was doing something to me, but couldn't figure out if he really was. Now, mind you, I knew that I should probably move out and find another place to live, but I still had a few months for the lease, and I didn't really have enough money to just leave. So, that night, everything went as normal. I came home from the gym, I came home and had dinner with my roommate, but as I'm finishing up, my friend shows up. I pretend that I forgot to mention that my girlfriend, not really, but just wanted to make it believable, was sleeping over. Surprisingly, my roommate took this very well. It was about that time that I started to get tired and I went to my room and fell asleep. So, this is the perspective from my friend. She also went into my room and saw that I was fast and in a deep sleep. But she knew very well that I'm a light sleeper. In fact, breathing hard enough could wake me up. But she was patting and shaking me and I just would not budge. Hours later, My friend woke up to the sound of the door opening. She stayed still, but from her original position, she could see the door, and from adjusting to the darkness, she could see somebody peeking in. At least 5 minutes passed by, and whoever it was, most likely my roommate, left, and didn't come back for the rest of the night. When I woke up, I didn't feel any sort of pain, and my friend told me everything and was worried that my roommate was the cause of my pain. So, for a week, I decided to stay with her, and occasionally I would get texts from my roommate asking when I was coming back, and then he would send pictures of his delicious food. As much as I wanted to stay with my friend, I couldn't because she lived far from the college, and it was a hassle traveling that far. She didn't attend the same college. However, she did give me the idea of buying some secret spy cameras that just looked like regular things. So I bought 2 small wall clocks and 2 charger plugs. The layout of my room when looking from above is basically door on the upper left side, TV and small table that it stands on is also left center side, bed is on the right back corner of the room, and closet is at front and center of the room. I set one clock to face the door, the other clock right side of the closet to face me, end of the bed, one charger plug on the table connected from extension cord to face me, side of the bed, and the other on another extension cord on the bed facing me from the top. I had a bad feeling that having 2 clocks and 2 extension cords in my room would be suspicious, but hopefully he wouldn't notice. Night came and it was the same routine. I went to bed that night and woke up around the same time with a bellyache. I then logged into my laptop and reviewed the footage. What I saw was that he did in fact enter my room with something in his hand. He came in as if I wasn't home, and what my friend said was right. It was like I was dead asleep. He pulled the blankets off of me and began with rubbing me before revealing the object to be a toy. He proceeded to torture me while whispering something that sounded like how he wished that I loved him, and why can't he do this to me when I'm awake? I think this all lasted for like half an hour before switching to another for a few, and then he left the room. I was in complete shock, and I went straight to the bathroom and showered and puked until I swear my stomach was completely empty. For the record, I'm not gay or bi, but I don't have anything against them, but after seeing the footage, I started to sort of feel fear towards them. I never ate another meal from him ever since, and as much as I could, I would either sleep at my friend's house or have them over. I even installed a lock on my door to have a key, since the previous door only had one of those basic locks that could be opened with the screwdriver. I never spoke to my roommate the same, and he noticed this, and he tried to sit down with me, as if he was concerned for me. But I always brought up excuses that I was late for something. I talked to my friend about this, and she forced me to speak with the college. I really didn't want to talk about this, but I eventually did, and I even showed them the footage. I don't know what happened to my roommate afterwards, but he was evicted from the apartment and probably expelled from the school. I don't know if he went to prison, but I do hope that he did. And sometimes I hope that he has the same experience of what he did to me. My bedroom is the hottest room in the entire house. In the winter, I have to almost fully cover the vents to block heat from coming in, and I have to sleep with the window open a tiny bit to keep it from getting too hot. I have a medical issue that causes me to get violently ill if I get overheated. When it's fall, I generally keep the bedroom windows open. They have screens on them, and I have blinds and blackout curtains, and I sleep with them open. I have a window at the front of the house, and a window on the side of the house in my room. The other night, I was watching TV because I have horrible insomnia, and I just couldn't fall asleep. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps outside my window on the side of the house. There's leaves all over the ground already, so it was pretty loud. I paused my show and listened, honestly just figuring it was one of my roommate's dogs. I realized, unfortunately, that there was no way it was either of his dogs. The girl dog is much younger, maybe a year old, and she prances everywhere. It's pretty adorable and very distinctive since I hear her out there several times a day. His other dog is a large dog, but he's very old and very fat and slow-moving. He generally can't even walk the distance from the back door to the other side of the house near my window. His walk is also very distinctive because he hardly lifts any of his paws. He's super old when he walks. I also noticed that it was very clearly the steps of somebody walking on 2 feet. Within seconds of me pausing the TV, the steps completely stopped. I listened for a while, but eventually turned the show back on. We do have a tree between us, by my window, and our neighbor. It's completely plausible that if someone was outside the window, they could have climbed into the tree and waited until they could get away without being heard. Eventually, I fell asleep. Just a little while ago, I had dozed off watching TV, only to be woken up by my cat frantically jumping on my head to look outside the window. He never looks out that window when I'm asleep, because he can't find a way to the window without stepping on me and waking me up. His tail was puffed out, and the hairs on his back were slightly raised. I've rarely seen him do this. He's only acted like that one time towards an animal that was a cat that we brought into our room and allowed to eat his food. He looks out the open window all the time. He loves seeing other animals. This took me from scared to absolutely freaked out. I paused the show again, and it was unmistakably human steps outside my window. Only this time they didn't stop when I paused the TV, and they definitely were not trying to be quiet. I heard them take several quick steps, and the sound faded towards the front of the house, confirmed when my cat launched himself across the room to look out that window. I then heard what sounded like a car door, and then nothing more since. I called the police, and 2 searched the outside of the house with flashlights, and another car drove around shining their spotlight around the neighborhood. Here's hoping whoever this is doesn't keep coming back. I'm also going to get some cameras as soon as I can to put outside my window so that I can find out who this is and have them stopped. So, I'm a female, 26 years old. At the age of 9, we moved in with my great-grandparents. I mostly grew up in a suburban area, and it was nice and quiet, or so I thought. At 10, I told my mom that I wanted to start walking home. I always enjoyed walks with the lush green trees on our street, and school wasn't far at all. Maybe 5 blocks through the neighborhood. Anyways, one day while I was walking home, I saw a big Adelphia cable truck, no longer a company, I think, and it was in the US, in one of the cul-de-sacs. Obviously, I didn't think anything of this. That is until the old man started motioning his finger for me to come to him while he was in the truck. I shook my head terrified, and he nodded, still gesturing his creepy finger signaling for me to come over to him. I ran. I bolted fast with my oversized backpack and did not stop running until I got in the door and locked it. I was mortified that an old man would be asking a child like me to come to his car, and my mom taught me better than to be fooled by his big company truck. To be fair, I was a young bloomer, and grew out in the 4th grade, so I blamed how my body looked for a long time. The second time was in front of the house that I lived in that same neighborhood. I always enjoyed sitting outside in the front lawn, and we had one of those big green electrical boxes that I would sit on from time to time. I was playing with those weird little berries that grow on trees, daydreaming and enjoying the nice weather. A white van was driving down my street, and I didn't think anything of it. Obviously, a lot of workers use very similar vans. However, as soon as the van passed me, I hear a loud screech, and I look over to see the white van making an unbelievably fast U-turn. I still remember the sound of those tires leaving marks as they rushed back around towards me. I ran inside and I locked the door. Now, my mom always told me to trust my gut, and that's just what I did. Coincidence? Maybe they made a wrong turn? I don't know, and I wasn't going to risk it. Anyways, these are real stories, and it actually feels nice sharing this because, as a mother now, I can only hope that nothing like that happens to my daughter. I pray that it doesn't. But these things do happen, and children go missing. Trafficking is very real, and I consider myself lucky. So that was today's collection of Stranger and Stalker stories. Collection of stories where the creepiest thing around is the person that's watching you from the other side of the road. All of these stories are genuinely terrifying because of how realistic they are, how close to home they can hit, and of course, they should be looked at as entertaining but also educational. If anyone ever finds themselves in these situations or a situation that's similar, hopefully these stories can offer a bit of insight as to what they should or could do to get out of the situation. Of course, best case scenario, no one ever ends up in these situations again, right? So, yeah. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, well, consider hitting that subscribe button, as I do 3 videos a week, typically, Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. Though this week it was Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday. But that's only because my voice still sounds like crap. It has not... I'm not getting into it again. Anyways, yeah. You can also leave me a comment down below, letting me know how you're doing, what your thoughts are, what your plans are for the rest of the week, and all that stuff. Just leave me a comment. Give me anything you want. I'm willing to chat it up with y'all. Yeah. Anyways, friends, I hope you're all having a beautiful day. I do hope that I see you on the next video. But until that time comes, please, sleep well.